Welcome. So I'm with the League of Women Voters. My name is Susie Davely, and we are here today for the Judge of the Superior Court Office 3 Candidate Forum. Welcome. So I'm with the League of Women Voters. Welcome. My name is Susie.
Susie, go ahead.
Getting a lot of feedback here. The League would like to thank our partners for today's forum, A New Lodi, Breakthrough Project for Social Justice in Lodi, Lodi News Sentinel, Lodi Branch AAUW, and Stockton Area Atheists and Freethinkers. We are videotaping today's forum, and the session will be available on YouTube through the League's website and on social media for broader community access. This material must be shown in its entirety, my apologies, with no excerpts. At this time, I would like to introduce Mark Bowman, our moderator for this afternoon's forum. Mr. Bowman has worked in the legal profession for 38 years and managed his own law practice for 30 years. He is a graduate of the Orange County College of Trial Advocacy and has tried cases before judges and juries in San Joaquin County for 32 years. In addition to his legal work, he has served as a court-appointed special advocate for foster children who have been victims of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. The League thanks Mr. Bowman for his participation in today's forum.
Thank you, Susie, and good afternoon, everyone. Our forum today is for Judge of the Superior Court Office 3. There are two candidates running for this position. They are Caitlin Mojica Casey and Peter DeVincenzi. The minimum qualifications to be elected a judge of the Superior Court, as prescribed by Article 3 of the California Constitution, are having practiced law for 10 years and being in good standing with the state bar. Once elected, the judge will be assigned to a particular department by a presiding judge of the San Joaquin County Superior Court for a term of 6 years. Let's start with the ground rules for today's forum. Each candidate has 1 minute for opening remarks, 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and 1.5 minutes for closing statements. The candidates will be alerted when 1 minute, 30 seconds, and 15 seconds remain, as well as when the time expires. The order of answering questions will alternate, and we will begin with the candidate listed first on the Registrar of Voters candidate list. There will be no separate rebuttals. However, the candidates may choose to use some or all of their 1.5 minutes to rebut the response given by the other candidate. The order of candidates per the Register of Voters for today is Caitlin Casey first, and then Peter DeVincenzi. So with that said, let's allow Ms. Casey your opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Caitlin Mojica Casey, and I am an attorney practicing in San Joaquin County. I've been a prosecutor for going on 16 years at this point. I live here in Lodi with my husband and my 2 school-age children. We moved to Lodi at the end of 2008 so that I could take a job with the district attorney's office. It was the beginning of the Great Recession, and I was fortunate to be able to get a job as the only outside hire doing what I had hoped to do in law school. Since then, I became a mother, community volunteer, board member, stakeholder, a manager in my office, and I've learned about the people in this community, what they need, what they're looking for, and how to best serve them. The way that I get to where I am today also has a lot to do with my parents. I was raised in a loving home by parents who tried their best, including a father who was a combat veteran from Vietnam, suffered and continues to suffer from PTSD, and a mother who showed me the value in the meaning of hard work. I'm grateful to them, and I sit here because of them. Thank you.
Mr. DeVincenzi, your opening statement.
Yes, my name is Peter DeVincenzi. I was born and raised here in San Joaquin County. I come from a fourth-generation farming family right here. I was born in Stockton and grew up in Stockton and Lodi areas. So I went to public schools here. I grew up here my whole life. I've always been involved in the community. So I grew up working on the family farm, digging ditches, doing hard work that helped me develop the work ethic that has made me successful to this day. I watched my parents struggle growing up. My dad worked really hard, multiple jobs to build his own business here in town. He still has his own business in Lodi. And I watched my mom work really hard to get her teaching credential and ultimately become a teacher. So growing up here has helped me develop deep ties to the community. I've always been involved, and I do know what the community needs. With regard to school, I went to University of the Pacific in Stockton. I kept it local for a reason because I love this community and I wanted to stay involved. I graduated from UOP and went to McGeorge School of Law, where I basically studied law and worked at the district attorney's office in Stockton full time. And those were really long days, and that's a testament to my work ethic. After graduating from McGeorge, I did civil litigation. I've been an attorney for 14 years, and I developed broad diverse experience in both civil litigation, handling all types of cases, property law, contract law, employment law, fighting for people's rights, and also defending large clients, such as the Regional Transit District in Stockton, Modesto Junior College. So I developed broad, diverse experience. I went on to work at the district attorney's office, where I've been a deputy district attorney for a little over 11 years now, handling numerous positions with distinction, and including leading the first agricultural crimes task force, leading the auto theft task force, handling gang shootings, some homicides, multiple types of cases, all the stuff that you hear about in the media. I've handled it. With regard to why I'm running for judge, I'm running for judge because I want to serve this community. I'm married to my lovely wife, Nicole, who's also a deputy district attorney, and I have 2 young sons, one 3 years old and one 3 months old, and I want to see a bright future for them. As a judge, I will always be fair and impartial. I will treat everyone that comes before the court with dignity and respect, and I will always, above all, follow the law and do what's best for San Joaquin County.
Very good. Thank you for those opening statements. Let's move on to our first question for the candidates. Mr. DeVincenzi, you will be handling the first section here. Our first question is, what are the qualities that make a judge a good judge, and what about you demonstrates those qualities?
So I think when it comes to being a judge, as I stated before, a judge should above all else follow the law. Being a judge is about following the law, treating everyone that comes before the court with dignity and respect, and being fair and impartial. Regardless of what people look like or their background, everyone should be treated the same. Everyone should be given dignity and respect. And the judge should look into the law, follow the law, and apply it to the facts before the court, regardless of outside influences. Now, what makes me uniquely qualified to be a judge? Well, I have deep ties to this community. I have a broad, diverse background. I've worked many different types of jobs in my life. I've worked manual labor. I've sold cherries on the side of the road. I've done all sorts of different types of jobs, which does give me a very broad and diverse perspective, and will help me, I think, in terms of listening to people that come before the court and hearing them out. So I also have diverse experience in law. So I have civil litigation experience and criminal experience. And I think that's important because when you're assigned a courtroom as a judge, you don't know what type of courtroom you're going to be assigned to. It could be a civil courtroom, it could be a criminal courtroom. I'm ready to hit the ground running and handle any type of case that comes before me, regardless of whether it's civil or criminal. I'm ready to go. The other thing that sets me apart is my work ethic. I have an unrivaled work ethic. I think the fact that I worked full time to put myself through law school and went to classes at night for 4 years straight is a testament to that. And I think that another testament to that is that I've been campaigning while doing my job and having a newborn. And you'll see me out there, you'll see me going door to door, you'll see me meeting all different types of people. And I think that's a testament to my work ethic as well. So, but above all else, it's the It's the strength to always follow the law and always treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of outside pressures. And I have that strength.
Thank you. And just to repeat for Ms. Casey, what are the qualities that make a good judge? And what about you demonstrates those qualities?
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. The most critical quality of a judge, and one that underpins everything else that's important, is the willingness to put the greater good, the rule of law, accountability above oneself. A judge that is a mentor to me said something recently that has stuck with me. The role of a judge in administration of justice is absolutely critical. It's terribly important, but it does not mean that the person wearing the robe themselves becomes important. And the ability to not conflate the role with one's standing means that someone is going to fairly view anyone who comes into a courtroom, any party, any litigant, any witness, victim, defendant, anyone who comes into the courtroom, treat them fairly and treat them with properly the expectation that everyone should have when they come into a courtroom, particularly one that is in a county that they live and work in, that they will be respected, that even though the result may not be as they hope for, they can walk away believing that the administration of justice works in San Joaquin County. Over my career and just in life, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a volunteer, going about my days in San Joaquin County, I have had to deal with people who weren't having the best time in the courthouse, didn't understand the process, believed they hadn't been treated fairly, were looking for some redress, didn't want to talk to me. I've had so many different experiences meeting people where they are, and I recognize the value of the humanity in each person, no matter what experience they're having. And I believe that being impartial and fair and adhering to the rule of law and loving the Constitution does not mean that a judge needs to personally be at arm's length and fail to acknowledge. Oh, thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's go to question number 2. And again, we'll be starting with Ms. Casey for this question. Question number 2, judges have numerous ethical restrictions, such as not asking for favors from law enforcement and the duty to disclose a family or economic interest in a case before him or her. How have you handled this during your campaign, and how do you plan to handle those if elected? Ms. Casey?
Thank you. Thank you. Campaigning has been interesting, and it has become true what some have said to me. So during a campaign, everyone wants to be your friend, including the people who already were your friend. I know that there are people who support my opponent, who work with me, who live alongside me in the community. I have not treated them any differently than I did before this race. And the same has held true because of the experience I've had in an adversarial environment in the courthouse. When you are opposing counsel and things are heated, stand that there should be a relationship on the other side of that. And people can only depend upon you to remain ethical if they see that in you and they already know that that's the kind of person you are. And I think that is my reputation. I think it precedes me. And I would much rather be on the side of right than gain personal benefit under any circumstances.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Again, to repeat question number 2, judges have numerous ethical restrictions, such as not asking for favors from law enforcement and the duty to disclose a family or economic interest in a case before him or her. How have you handled this during your campaign? And how do you plan to handle those if elected, Mr. DeVincenzi?
Yes. So First off, I think during this campaign, it has been interesting talking to a lot of voters, and I have talked to a lot of voters, and I've made contact with many different types of people. And the first and foremost thing is no favors, right? It's like you're going out there, you're introducing yourself, letting them know why you're qualified to be judge, why you want to be judge. But it's also really important to let them know that you can make no promises. And I've followed that throughout my campaign. And I think that's important. With regard to how you handle if someone that has supported you comes before you as a judge, I think that there are mandatory disclosures you have to make, and I will always follow those. There's also the ethical obligation to recuse yourself in some cases, and I will also follow that. So, and there are specific guidelines for that, like there's numerical, like dollar amount cutoffs for that. And I would definitely follow that in every single case, because it's important that we maintain the faith in the judicial system, and that judges remain impartial and judges remain independent in their decision-making process. So you want to be an open book. You want people to be able to see who you are and be as transparent as possible. And in order to maintain faith in the justice system, I will definitely follow those rules. And I can give you an example. I did have a case that I was handling as a DA where someone had made a campaign contribution. I got off that case. So that's just one example, but that was bound to happen with talking to so many voters. I'm very active in campaigning and out there talking to a lot of people. But yes, always follow the ethical guidelines and the rules.
Thank you. Question number 3. How do you interpret the concept of social justice, and how can the judicial system ensure that justice has been served for both victims and the convicted? Mr. DeVincenzi.
So I think that in terms of ensuring justice for both the accused and convicted, it comes down to always following the law, upholding everyone's rights, and basically just doing what is right in each case. And that comes back to treating everyone fairly and impartially, actually doing the research, hearing the arguments, following the cases. As judges, we're required to follow the law, including the laws passed by voters, the laws passed by the legislature in Sacramento, the Constitution, and case law as well. And as a judge, I will always do the hard work to research the law and make sure I'm following it in every single case. And in terms of balancing those two, obviously it is somewhat of a balancing act. And I think having the diverse experience in both civil law and criminal law will help me in doing that. In civil law, I represented both plaintiffs and defendants. So I represented people who had been wronged, seeking to get them justice, get them a settlement amount or their job back or whatever it was. And I've also represented defendants. I've also defended them against lawsuits when it was appropriate, and I felt that the lawsuit needed to be defended. So I think having that diverse experience has helped me, and I think it'll also help me with ultimately balancing those two aspects of justice that you just described.
Thank you. Again, our third question is, how do you interpret the concept of social justice, and how can the judicial system ensure that justice has been served for both victims and the convicted? Ms. Casey?
Thank you. I mentioned earlier that the role of a judge and the role of an advocate in the courthouse, particularly a prosecutor, is to see the humanity in every person you come across. You're only able to do that when you are comfortable with every person you see as a peer. There was a forum in Stockton on Monday evening, and I saw numerous people whom I'd previously convicted. I shook their hand, I looked them in the eye, and we had conversations that were respectful. I've had conversations like that in the hallways of defendants' families after people have been convicted. When people understand your role and they understand that you want the best for them personally, irrespective of how they get into that hallway, into that courtroom, you've met social justice when you are seeing the dignity in everyone you come across. Because I've done that, because many of my victims in cases, I manage gangs and human trafficking for the district attorney's office. Sometimes victims are a defendant the next month, or vice versa, or witnesses in a crime. You have to be comfortable looking everybody in the eye and appreciating them and their experiences and how they've gotten to you. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you will not successfully meet the ends of social justice, which is to make sure that the humanity is recognized in each person in the courtroom. Thank you.
And thank you for that response. On to our fourth question. What about your experience as a lawyer has prepared you to be a judge? Ms. Casey.
Thank you. One of the factors in this role as a prosecutor and the call of being a judge that's been discussed is hard work. My career has been doing hard work when people weren't necessarily looking, when it didn't show, but when it was the right thing to do. Making calls that weren't comfortable, that were disagreed with, and having the fortitude to remain respectful, to remain collegial, while still sticking to my convictions and inclinations. I've had 16 years of doing that. I've had 16 years of success, ultimately, becoming the person and the advocate that I am. Necessarily, a judge's requirements in a courtroom are predicated upon a person who has been a successful lawyer, who has the requisite knowledge and experience. But temperament is so critical. Lawyers who have requisite knowledge and experience are not necessarily excellent judges. Excellent judges are people who have the humanitarian aspect down. They are people who are able to make sure that the system is accessible and working and transparent to everyone in front of them. Having to have those conversations that I've had, work with numerous different people, learning to be uncomfortable, learning to get people to a place where they were still willing to cooperate with me despite their circumstances. That has made me into the lawyer that I am today, and it will make me into a successful judge.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. Again, question 4. What about your experience as a lawyer has prepared you to be a judge, Mr. DeVincenzi?
Yes. So I think going back to what I said before, so I've been an attorney for 14 years and I have very diverse, broad experience. During that 14 years, I did practice civil law for a few years. I was handling all types of cases, dealing with all types of people, in terms of labor law, employment law, fighting for people's rights, people who had been wronged in the workplace and making sure that they got justice. And on the other side, during my civil law experience, I also represented large clients in defense cases as well. I also defended them against lawsuits and got to see that perspective. So the civil experience, doing depositions, handling the civil discovery process, which is very complex, dealing with the 100+ page motions for summary judgment, that's all really important. And the reason it's important is when you get assigned a courtroom as a judge, you don't know which assignment you're going to get. So you want somebody who has the experience in both civil law and criminal law, because there's a much less learning curve if they've actually done it, and I have. With regard to my criminal experience, I have been a deputy district attorney for a little over 11 years. I've handled numerous roles with distinction. I led the first agricultural crimes task force with the Sheriff's Office and Farm Bureau, making sure that our crimes against the rural communities were dealt with appropriately and people were held accountable. I led the auto theft task force for San Joaquin County for 2 to 3 years, making sure that auto theft was appropriately handled and leading that team. I've handled gang cases, I've handled robberies, carjackings, shootings, and you name it, I've handled it. And my experience in the criminal law system has been very broad. Trials, grand jury investigations, wiretap investigations. So I think that you need somebody who has that diverse experience and who's not afraid to do what's right and who can actually talk to people, and that is me.
Thank you. For our fifth and final question, the litigation of cases has historically been a lengthy process. The pandemic has caused further delay, and this means that suspects remain in jail and litigants seeking remedy must wait longer for their rights to be vindicated. What can a judge do to address the delay and crowding of the courts and help litigants seek and attain their remedy quicker? Mr. DeVincenzi.
Yes, and this is actually something that I watched happen. So during COVID, I know both myself and my wife were continuing to work at the district attorney's office, and the presiding judge at the time, Shapri Viapudua, actually did a really good job keeping the courts running during that time. And we were still doing trials, we were still doing hearings, and I think that kind of made San Joaquin County stand out in that there wasn't as much of a backlog in the criminal justice system, and there shouldn't be, right? Because justice delayed is justice denied. So we should be moving cases along as fast as possible and making sure that we get to the end result, which may either be some sort of plea bargain or a jury trial. And ultimately, I think our courts did a really good job at that, and I think our office, the DA's office, did a good job at that as well, making sure that cases were moving along and weren't just stagnating and there was a huge delay. Obviously, there's some cases that take longer than others. Homicide cases take longer. The investigations are more thorough, and sometimes it takes defense attorneys longer to prepare for those because of the serious consequences associated with them. So it really is a balancing act. But overall, the goal is to make sure that we have quick justice. We have justice that is both thorough, fair, and not delayed.
Thank you. Again, our fifth and final question. The litigation of cases has historically been a lengthy process. The pandemic has caused a further delay. This means that suspects in jail and litigants seeking remedy must wait longer for their rights to be vindicated. What can a judge do to address the delay and crowding of the courts? Ms. Casey?
Thank you. An additional factor on top of COVID and the pandemic, which has really impacted our dockets, not just on the criminal side, but because of the volume necessarily in the other courthouse assignments, is legislation that mandates resentencing avenues for a number of criminal cases. So our judges who have pending cases before them are also contending with a number of cases that are coming back through the petition process, adding to the volume. That's a difficult onus to meet the call of the legislature, but it's also difficult because it adds volume to the workload of defense attorneys, of prosecutors, of court staff who are processing those petitions. And I say this to underscore how important it is that a judge is able to start on time, manage her docket effectively, keep things at a reasonable clip. Some cases do take longer necessarily. It's not a race, but there are plenty of cases that can be moved along and are moved along effectively. Starting hearings on time, minimizing the number of continuances, and also being prepared to rule and prepared for a matter to go to hearing at the appointed time. Judges need to be prepared just as attorneys ought to be prepared. We expect that of judges. We do better when we do have judges who are ready to meet the increasing burden of their docket.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to our closing statements, and we'll begin with Ms. Casey.
Thank you. Over the last several years, I've been asked if I would consider switching from my role as an advocate to taking the bench. I love my job. I think what I do is very important without it making me personally important. When I was asked to run, I was asked to run by judges and people in the community that I've worked with, law enforcement investigators, who have seen me working when not many other people were looking. At this point in my life, I have the requisite experience. I have the perspective of a woman in her 40s who understands the world better, who has met people where they are, and is a capable attorney to sit as a member of the bench in our courthouse. I've practiced in all of the courthouses in our county over the years. We had Tracy open, Lodi, Manteca, and Stockton. And it's significant to me to be able to deliver justice and to be held responsible by community members whom I live with, in this county, drive among, work among, walk among. It's a type of accountability that one does not have to have unless you're in a county like San Joaquin. And I'm ready to deliver that. I'm ready to take on that onus. And I believe I am the most capable candidate in the race. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeVincenzi, your closing statement.
Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm born and raised in San Joaquin County. I've lived here my whole life. I care deeply about the community. And while I too have been asked by law enforcement, judges, numerous people have suggested to me to run for judge, I want to make one thing clear. My decision to run for judge is based solely on my love for this community and my desire to serve this community. I've been a successful attorney for 14 years. I've handled, different types of cases. I've been a successful civil attorney. I've been a successful criminal attorney. And my desire to run for judge, again, is based solely on serving this community that I love. My wife and I live here, and we have 2 young kids, and I want to see a bright future for those kids as well as the rest of the youth in San Joaquin County. We need people who are tied to the community. We need people who care about the community, and we need people who know what the community needs. I've been in San Joaquin County my whole life. Like I said, I have a diverse background, a well-rounded background. I've worked many different types of jobs. I've worked with people from all walks of life, from all different places. And I think that that has given me a unique perspective and the ability to understand where people are coming from and hear people out. A judge should always, again, follow the law, be fair and impartial, and always be willing to do what's right, regardless of outside pressures and regardless of, political pressures from outside, regardless of protesters. You need somebody who has the strength to make the decision and follow the law and always do what's right. And I am that person. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, I am asking for your vote for Superior Court Judge. Thank you.
Thank you to both of the candidates for taking your time out of your busy schedules to come and meet with us. And we appreciate the revealing responses that we've received. It can be difficult getting information about judges as opposed to other candidates. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for participating in today's Judicial Candidate Forum. The League of Women Voters of San Joaquin County would like to thank our partners for today's forum. A New Lodi, Breakthrough Project for Social Justice in Lodi, Lodi News Sentinel, Lodi Branch AAUW, and Stockton Area Atheists and Freethinkers. The California primary election is March 4th. For more information on the primary ballot, please visit Vote 411. That's vote411.org, and select California for information on what is on your ballot and location of polling places. Thank you all for your time today.